Alrighty, cool. So, hey everyone, welcome to our weekly event, Advent Member Talks. My name is Sam, my pronouns are they, them, and I am the Member Experience Manager here at Advent Coworking. We are a creative co-working space, community event space, podcast studio, wellness center, and art gallery. Lots of things, but most importantly, we are a community. And this weekly event, Advent Member Talks, gives our members an opportunity to share their skills and their experience and knowledge, not only with fellow Advent members, but also with the greater Charlotte community. So each week features a different member on the topic of their choosing. And today we have Josie, who's going to be talking about how you can discover your political purpose. So I'm going to hand it over to Josie, and if you have any questions, go ahead and type those into the comments, and we'll do a short Q&A at the end. All right, Josie.
Hi, thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. My name is Josie. I am a life coach and consultant. Today I am talking essentially about activism, beyond casting a ballot. We just had our big presidential election. I know a lot of people have questions about what they want to do next. And I know that can be tricky for entrepreneurs and small businesses in particular. So essentially, this is going to be about finding your place in the activist ecosystem. I am framing it as directed towards people who are just starting out with their activism, but the steps I'm going to present should be helpful for even established activists who are looking to give themselves a reset, so to speak. After I discuss kind of this 3 steps that I have, I'm going to give some tips that should help your transition into activism go a little bit more smoothly. And they should be tips that'll be helpful for established activists as well. So just to begin, I want to have a working definition of activism that I do use throughout this. Basically, I am referring to activism as an organized and sustained effort to affect social change for a better future. So that's like a really short definition. There's a lot of nuance to it, but that's what I'm going to be working with today. So to tell you a little bit about myself, and why I want to talk about this, since I'm a life coach and that doesn't seem super connected to activism. I have been involved in activism for about 10 years in different capacities. I even did my master's thesis at UNCC about the organizing community in Charlotte. So it is just a topic that is near and dear to my heart. As far as my history, I have done a lot of different things in activism. I started when I was 20, so about 10 years ago. I started with reproductive rights, reproductive justice. I moved then into LGBTQ issues, worked on racial justice, and I even, did electoral stuff such as campaigning against gerrymandering. So it's really, I kind of presented it as a list, but they're all interconnected. And your interest with activism is usually going to be a snowball situation where, you begin with one thing that really gets you fired up, then you learn how everything is connected, and then it just grows from there. Again, none of these issues exist independent of each other. So for most people who get into activism, this snowball effect will occur. So to begin, basically my 3 steps are just 3 self-assessments. The first thing you're going to want to do to start out is assess your values and your interests. So this is your starting point. This is what gets you fired up the most. And it's just a starting point. If you care about one issue, you probably care about a lot more than just that one issue. But the first one for you is probably going to be the one that affects you most materially in the moment. That's usually what gets you worked up, or something that affects your friends or family the most. So basically, if you're not sure where to start, think about what pisses you off the most. It's helpful to think about any given politician's political platform, whatever the thing is that you won't let go of over dinner, that thing that you won't shut up about, that's probably a good place to start. So the trick here, especially for a small business or an entrepreneur, is that you need to be engaging or find something that you can engage in authentically and is not for self-serving motivations. Now, that is true for anybody. That's true for individuals as well. But if you are an entrepreneur, you're going to need to be able to defend your decision to be political publicly. So you're probably you may have some backlash if your values and interests don't align with your clients, depending on what you do. So I know it can be scary for an apolitical business to turn activist at the beginning, because you might be worried that you're going to lose customers or clients. So your confidence on the issue really needs to come first. You need to be able to speak to it. That doesn't mean you have to know everything about it at first. It just means you have to have something that is so deep inside of you that's fired up about it that you're not going to be ashamed to talk about it. Another tip for business owners on this particular self-assessment, where you think about your values and your interests, look at, if you as a business have a list of values that already exist, that you already have out on your website, see how you can turn those into actionables. Those need to be actionable. Your values need to be something that you can do material things with. That's usually a good start. If you don't have values as a business or a small business, the activism will probably help you bring that into your work over time. So that is your first assessment. Your second assessment is going to be an assessment of your skills. So for this, this is an ongoing assessment. They're all ongoing assessments, but this one, you are going to be asking yourself, what do I have to offer? What do I have knowledge on? What do I have access to? Maybe your business itself has an offering that you could give to the community right now. For example, there is an organization in Charlotte called Feed the Movement CLT, which is also their Instagram handle. Right now, they are doing a Zoom auction for their cause, and they are auctioning off small businesses offerings. So that's something that you can make actionable immediately. Some common areas that people can offer are, healing, yoga, childcare, cooking, firearm training, combat training, knowledge of Microsoft Office. These groups need everything and anything. Think of it as writing a resume for yourself that just includes literally every conceivable thing that might be helpful to others. And keep this internal resume updated as you learn new things. Or as you become less enamored with the skills that you were offering before. If you're an established activist and you're looking to do a reset because what you're doing is no longer aligning with what you are, like what you feel, make sure you haven't gotten stuck in a role that's no longer compatible with the skills that you have to offer. So that's something to be thinking about. Now, as far as skills go, you're probably going to want to be ready with this information the moment that you go out. So usually people's starting point is an interest meeting with a nonprofit or a local organization. Usually what's going to happen is they're going to pass around a piece of paper at the end of the meeting. It's going to have a place for your name and a place for your email, and it's going to ask you what skills you have to offer. So be ready to offer those things. So your third thing here that you're going to want to assess, and it's really simple. This is all really simple and straight to the point. You're going to want to assess your local environment, your local community, based on your interests, values, and skills. All you have to do is hop onto Google. All you have to do is hop onto Facebook and look at the events that are being offered in your neighborhood, or just in the city in general. So just because you've never, like as a newbie going into it, just because you've never heard of somebody doing stuff around the issue that you care about doesn't mean it's not happening. And that's also a bubble that established activists get into as well, where they no longer feel, or they don't realize that other people are doing things that they could be doing. So always keep your mind open to new places you could be putting your energy. Again, everyone's liberation is connected. So, whatever you do, it's going to be connected to other people and other issues. Nothing is ever just self-contained. So you're always going to be overlapping. And it's really, really cool when you see that in action. Now, the local aspect for small businesses in particular, I think is really important. As like local entrepreneurs, you are probably building your base locally as well. Being involved and committed to your actual community is so important to making sure you have support when things go wrong. And you're going to want to have people support you they are going to want to support you because you have similar values to them. So keep that in mind. Those are people who are going to be buying your services, and people who are going to show up when disaster strikes, when we have a flood and we need to rebuild. Like, these are things that having your values stated are going to help you in the long run. And again, all these things need to be like routinely addressed and readdressed. So it's good for newbies. It's also good for others who have been in activism. So yeah, that's my 3 steps there. It's very simple. I do have additional tips I like to offer. So basically, don't be afraid of groups that are not nonprofits. A lot of people start with nonprofits because they are 501c3s, so there's a clear tax structure there. There's a way for you to get tax deductions if you donate and are involved with them. But those are not the only people who are doing work. And the people who are not choosing to be part of official nonprofits, that doesn't mean that the work they're doing is any less or shady or anything like that. So don't be afraid of that. A lot of times the activists you're going to meet who are already established may be employed by nonprofits and then doing things on the side with a group that is not a nonprofit. There may be people who are campaigning door to door and canvassing for a literal electoral campaign. And on the side, they are out in the streets doing direct actions as needed. Another statement here is don't be afraid of direct action. You know, if you are a newbie, a lot of times people are afraid that activism means being out in the streets because that's what's portrayed in the media. And I think a lot of people want to hear that they don't have to be in the streets if they don't want to. But I'm not going to tell you that, because your role might be in the streets and that might be scary to you. But you should be ready to embrace that when it comes along, because that is one of the most organic forms of communal action, is to come together when an injustice has occurred. So don't be afraid of the streets. Go out with a group of people that you trust and go be in the streets. Do a direct action. And a final tip that I kind of want to share here is that being a know-it-all is not a skill. And this is something I have to say both to newbies and to established activists. When you go into a new space, as you are trying to go into a new area of activism, you don't need to go in there with all the answers, and you don't need to question everything all the time. You can get answers to your questions, but coming in like you own the place and like you know everything better than everyone else, it's not a good look. You need some humility. You need to be ready to listen, especially if you've never done activism before. Yeah, and that's really, honestly, that's the fundamentals. That's the fundamentals of figuring out what you want to do, making sure that you are staying aligned within yourself when you're doing it, and kind of making it as smooth of a transition as possible. And that's my presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josie. I know that's like a ton of information to such a short amount of time. Since we have a 1 minute kind of delay between Facebook and us here on Zoom, would you mind just listing those 3 steps again, just as a recap?
Yeah, absolutely. So your first step is going to be a assessment of your values or interests. This is how you're going to figure out, what issue or cause to start with. Your next is going to be a skill assessment. And your third is going to be an assessment of your local community. And it seems hard at first, but once you get in there, you're going to learn everything. Everyone is connected to everything. Activists do a million things. So it's not going to be hard to, get connected once you're in.
Awesome. So 2 questions. Which do I want to ask first? Let's see. I guess so. The premise of this is discovering your political purpose now that the elections are over. And so I was wondering if you could just expand on why it's important to be involved in political work that's not just electoral politics.
Okay. Yeah. That's a hard question because it's been a long time since I felt that only electoral politics are important. To me, it's about culture change, and it's about making a material difference in people's lives. We have a presidential election that comes around every 4 years, and then we have every 2 years or so other stuff comes up, and those things are helpful. Local things are important to do, but in the downtime, there's so much other stuff going on, and you have to be responsible to your community as an individual and as a business when politicians aren't around to listen. And that, that's just how we show up for each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned supporting your like neighborhood. Like I think you may have said like knowing what people need and like knowing what people have to offer. How is that connected to political purpose? Am I giving you hard questions?
You're getting philosophical questions, I feel like, but I don't have a direct answer for. This is like a knowledge that I've come to over the course of many years doing it. So it can be hard to see how building community with easy things like this, or small things like this, it can be hard to see how that has a major impact in the long run. But again, it comes down to when the big organizations, the big nonprofits, the big businesses aren't there to support you, you're going to support each other.
Mm, absolutely. So to bring it back to that kind of the entrepreneurship aspect to this, what's the best way for an employee to talk to their boss about taking direct action as a company?
It depends on your company. It depends on what your work culture is. Can you repeat the question one more time while I think about it?
Absolutely. People are really hitting it with these questions today. What's the best way for an employee to talk to their boss about taking direct action as a company?
If you're going to need to appeal to your boss's values. If you are lucky enough to work for a small company, a small business that does have their values listed, you need to just kind of show how it is actionable, and how direct action can be part of that. Now, I would love to know a little bit more about how they're defining like direct action. It's hard because every business is different and every boss is different, but like your ideal situation is you have open communication lines with your boss or your manager, and you're able to kind of come up with a plan on how to do that in a way that stays consistent with your workplace's ethos.
Absolutely. So yeah, Charlotte, if you want to expand on direct action at all, we can kind of definitely get back to that. But in regards to kind of your clients, what do you say to a client who is afraid to get political because they don't want to say or do the wrong thing and then negatively affect the people that they're trying to support? And I also want to expand that to how can you as an entrepreneur in a company, put out these political things while, not offending, your potential target audience or potential future customers.
So the beginning of the question was, how would I personally advise a client? Can you repeat the first part?
Yeah. I know. I read the question and I was like, oh, but and also this. So what do you say to a client who's afraid to get political because they don't want to say or do the wrong thing and negatively affect the people they're trying to support?
So if I was talking to an individual client or a small business or a team that I'm working with, I would kind of just refer them back to, you're coming in as a newbie, so you need to come in with humility. You need to walk into an organizing space and be ready to take direction. Now, that doesn't mean being mindless, because part of what you're going to be doing is developing your political analysis as time goes on. So your best way to stay authentic is to have a political analysis that you can stand by. And that has to be a political analysis that is open to shifting as you learn new things. It can't be like a dogma. It can't be super static. It has to be willing to move. And then you might still offend people. Like, you're probably going to offend people. You might offend people you're trying to help. You might offend people who don't like what you're saying, just generally. That's just a risk that you take. It happens. Be ready to apologize if it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And then to kind of touch back on that second additional question I added on haphazardly a little bit, as a business, when you're working on your social media platforms, and, this was something that Advent also was trying to discover as, if we're just a co-working space, we're not a political space, but there are events that are happening in the world that are affecting our community in a huge way. What is our role, or what is appropriate perhaps for us to kind of share in our social medias, and how do we do that in a way that is authentic and not just like a one-off, oh, this thing happened, so we're posting.
I think it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. First of all, are you really a member of your community? Do you want to be a member of your community? Then if so, you need to think like a member of your community. If people that you serve are posting about this, you need to take a cue from them. It can be hard when there's this line between you as a service provider or whatever the case may be, and a community that you're serving. It can be hard. It can feel like you're looking in from the outside. So I can see how that's difficult. And you just want to make sure that you are keeping in touch with what people care about. That doesn't mean sort of just like parroting what they're saying or just repeating it. That's where the analysis comes from. And if you are part of that community, which many businesses claim to be part of their communities, which I think we can fairly be a little bit cynical about, because really what a lot of businesses want to do is make money off of the people around them, not be part of the community. They just want to be part of the community insofar as the community can support them. If you want to support the community back, then be part of the community, and it should come fairly naturally. Not easy, but it should be intuitive.
Yeah, that's real hot advice, y'all. It's so important that we are a part of our community, and we're not just saying that we're a part of our community. And if we are a part of our community, like Josie is just saying, like we have to be addressing what our like folks are saying and like what they're going through, and like figuring out how to authentically support people. So I really appreciate you like touching on that, Josie, because that's really important for businesses to do. All right, let's see. We have another question here. As a consumer, how can you evaluate whether or not a business is authentic in their activism?
I think it's always going to be like it depends. You have to be able to ask critical questions. Critical thinking skills it sounds condescending to say develop your critical thinking, but you have to be ready to question things. Have they ever done anything before? Are they doing consistent steps? Are they explaining why they're starting their steps now? Does it seem like a reasonable thing for them to do? Does it make sense? If they're giving money to people, like, can you follow the money trail basically and see where that money is going? Are they being really transparent about it? These are just, again, ask questions, see where the money is going, essentially. That's how you know.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, I see someone typing in the comments here, so we may have another question coming in, but this is really great information for folks to share. I guess we'll see if this question comes in, but in the meantime, would you mind sharing just about the work you do? Because like, how are you tying in kind of this topic into what you do as a coach?
Yeah, absolutely. So like activism is, it's been part of my life longer than coaching has. It's been part of my life longer than, anthropology, which is my educational background has been. Realizing that we are all connected, which to me is what activism is about. And I mean that in a very like real way. Like we are connected. That is our purpose. Our purpose is to help each other and to liberate each other. Not just like go, do volunteer work at a local charity, but to make like really material difference in each other's lives. So when I'm with the client, a lot of my clients are already activists. So a lot of them found me through activism. And that's why they already kind of trusted me, because they knew me a little bit already. So it's not hard to talk about political purpose with them. But there are people who are going to need help finding their purpose in what they're doing, because, your purpose isn't to make money. Your purpose, it's deeper than that. And I do think everyone's purpose should be connected to other people, which is where activism comes in.
I'm muted. Okay.
I see.
I'm the meme of the person who's always muted. That is my life right now. But thank you like so much, Josie, for all of this information. I do see like still that kind of chat going. Let's see. Okay, so your last answer that you gave, you said to words. You said to evaluate if a company's activism is authentic, you should see if they're explaining why they didn't start taking action until now. Could you expand on that?
So it's really about taking everything as a whole, and I hope I'm answering this question correctly for whoever's asking. But there are companies, there are social entrepreneurs, there are people who are coming into this, trying to mix business with activism, which is great, whatever. I'm not going to give a value judgment on that right now. So they're coming in, from the gate, with activism on the mind. But then there are people who have been living an apolitical business life and then suddenly start posting. Just look at, does it seem like they're really, usually people will make a statement when they decide to start being political. So you can evaluate these things. You can see, does that sound real? And that is like a gut instinct. That is an intuition thing. And you are going to have to take everything with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, a lot of businesses are trying to make money. So, if they have not done stuff before, but express how they are making or how they are changing their political views, or why they feel like they need to start doing it, you can reasonably kind of discern the sincerity of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Josie. So yeah, so everyone watching, like, discover your political purpose, what's really affecting you, what's really affecting your loved ones, what gets you fired up, if we were gathering for Thanksgiving, what would be that argument you're having with your uncle all night long,
Yeah.
Those are the things that you're going to have energy to really commit yourself to. And right, remember, there's so many folks doing this work in the community already. Find those people. It can be challenging. And Josie said, like, sometimes it's easier to get in through nonprofits, but then just start talking to people. If you just start talking about things in your everyday life, those opportunities are going to like manifest. They're going to show up because they already exist, and it's just kind of finding and connecting with them. So thank you so much, Josie, for in a very short amount of time trying to get us really into looking at how we can discover our political purpose. So if folks want to connect more with you, learn more about what you do or what have you, how can they do that?
Okay, so they can go read about like my coaching services at coachingwithjosie.com. You're not going to see much about activism on there. I'm fairly new to this website, so you're not going to see a ton on there. But if you want to contact me through there to discuss it more, you can. If you want to see a little bit more of a personalized, you can go to my Instagram. It is at Josie the Life Coach Instagram. So you can connect with me there.
Awesome. Thanks, Josie. And thank you so much to everyone who has joined us today for our Advent Member Talk. Again, this is a weekly event every Tuesday from 4:30 to 5 p.m. Each talk features a different member on the topic of their choosing. So we're not going to have a member speaking next week, but we hope that you will join us for the first Tuesday of December. We're going to have the founder and owner of Advent, Kevin, joining us to lead a member talk. Yeah. So thanks, y'all, and I hope you have a great evening.